Welcome to episode 73 on the Live Blissed Out podcast. Did you know that approximately 85% of business leadership teams spend less than an hour per month discussing strategy? Hello, action takers. Welcome to Live Blissed Out, a podcast where I have inspirational and informational conversations with business owners and subject matter experts to help us get the scoop and the lowdown on a variety of topics. Tired of hesitating or making decisions without having the big picture? Want to be in the know? Then this is the place to go. I'm your host, Marissa Houston, helping achieve bliss through awareness and action. Thanks for joining me. Joining us is Jess, Dewell, managing partner of Red Direction. She charts a course that leverages where strategy and operations overlap and is the popular host of the Bold Business podcast. As a nationally recognized forthright voice for collaboration and transformation, she uses proactive approaches to instill guiding principles to run, grow, and scale their business. There are crucial moments that arise when it is most important to make authentic connection, and those moments are missed. Jess will show you how to course correct to achieve more. To learn more, visit reddirection.com. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. This podcast should not be considered professional advice. Jess, welcome to the show.
Marissa, I am so glad to be here with you today. This is something that I have been looking forward to for weeks.
Me too. I'm super excited to talk to you. And as a fellow podcaster, I know you have your own podcast. Please share what your podcast is about, Jess.
Sure thing. The Voice of Bold Business is all about being the leader that you already are and expanding on your strengths. So we all hit roadblocks. We all need a little bit of extra marketing. We all need all of those good skills. What's underneath those good skills are those soft skills. How do I show up to stress? How do I make decisions? How do I consider reaching my next great big goal? Whether that's an internal scaling, it doesn't matter what that growth would be. That's what we're talking about at the Bold Business Podcast. And we've been doing that for 3.5 years now for that podcast. It is an amazing show, and I have not run out of things to talk about, nor have I run out of people who want to talk about this stuff with me.
I'm not as strategic as you are with your topics. I just get so excited to talk to all kinds of guests with different topics and things that we can learn about. It not only enriches my life, but I love sharing the knowledge of my guests with listeners. I'm looking forward to our conversation today, which is going to be how to be strategic in business. Let's define that. When you say strategic, what do we mean by that?
There's a lot of different things that come to somebody's mind when they say strategic. To set the record straight, they're all right. The thing is, when we're talking about being strategic in our business, we can't do all of the right things. We have to pick the one right path that is right for us and our business right now. Even though there are so many paths that are right, we have to choose the one path we will be on. It can make us feel like we're missing out. And so we don't want to do that. The point of making the decision and putting our stake in the ground and saying, I have chosen my path, which is the right path, and this is how to go forward. That's how every other decision can get made and be small adjustments instead of large pivots or adjustments.
Jess, I'm so glad you pointed that out. There's more than one way to get to where you want to go. But I think that as business owners, we tend to either follow a specific path that we've been told worked for somebody else, or we have that deer in the headlights thing where we're stuck. We don't know which direction to take. And then there's the other one, which is where you see that bright, shiny object and you're going, oh, I'm going to try that. And then you take on so many different things that nothing works. And if there's one thing I learned from the mistakes that I've made, the best thing I've ever done was be hyper-focused on one thing and do it to the best of my ability. Don't you think?
Completely agree. And let's also take what we already know, because choosing one thing it can be really hard. Every business has a business model. We know what that model is. That's what we're doing. So that's already known. We don't have to think about it anymore. We know what our strengths are and what made us want to start this business and what made us want to serve other people, other companies, creating product or services. That's already known. So why not use that? So the thing we have to decide is, Can we really step into the shoes that we have given ourselves? And then what is our vision? Where are we going? What's the mission? What are we delivering? And how are we doing it? And commit to that, how we are going to deliver what we're doing. That, I think, is the hardest because, to your point, there's a whole bunch of ways. Shiny object syndrome, new ideas. This worked for somebody else. Could it work for me? To get to my how. How do I do business? What problem am I solving? And so the path to the problem solving is what gets convoluted. And that's where being very focused makes all the difference in the world.
Focus is huge. And it took me a really long time to figure that out. You do. You see all these successful people and you say, well, they're using this or they're doing that. So let me try this. And then what happens is you apply so many things at once. And I feel like you're juggling all these different plates and none of them are working effectively. And then you feel like a failure. You're wondering, why is this happening? You're losing focus. You're trying to do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And I think that if you really master something, that's a really great foundation. And then once you've set that up, then you can build on it.
It's true. So I have a client right now who came to me and they had a goal and they thought it was going to take them 2 years to get to that goal. 6 months of working with me, they hit their 2-year goal because the thing we worked on was committing to what to master.
With decision making, Jess, it's tough. We have this situation where we're trying to make a decision and we're scared of the consequences. But at the same time, we try different things. We like to experiment. Okay, I'm going to make the decision. I'm going to do this. And nothing seems to fit. And then things are falling apart. And then you feel frustrated. Like, what am I doing wrong? What are some of the things that we can do as business owners to help with that process? How do we make decisions effectively?
I'm going to tell you something you might already know. It's what you value. So the key to every business decision is just recognizing what you prioritize is actually what you value in the work that's being done. And the work that's being done and what's being prioritized is the way that that work is going to be delivered to the customer. When we're making decisions, we need to know 2 things. What are our company values? And can we embody them? And the second thing is, are we prioritizing our work to those values?
Are you saying then that that is more like really being very aware of your why? Why are you doing what you're doing and what do you want to get out of it?
Yes, because when you know what your why is, and other people are also able to understand, they're buying your product, they like your service, they like the way you're doing your business, well, that matters to them. If a decision is made that is out of alignment with that, everybody gets confused. Your employees get confused. Your customers get confused. Your marketing becomes convoluted and unclear. And what does it look like? So one of our company values at Red Direction is to be resourceful. Resourcefulness can be all kinds of things, to be of service, to be on a shoestring budget, to ultimately figure out what the strengths are and how do we leverage those in every single situation to support not only what we're doing, but what our clients are doing. The values that we bring and the way we do business is incredibly important because people believe what they see we're doing, not what we say we're doing. And the biggest communication issue internally between people and between a company and their customers is that what they say they're doing is not the same as what they're actually doing.
That is so spot on. And I think we've all experienced that. You watch an ad, let's say on TV, and the company will say, we're all about customer service. We care about you. And then you call them. And then the first thing that happens is you get an automated response. You can't even get a hold of anybody. Then when somebody actually answers the phone, it's like they're eating while they're talking to you and they're angry and you have to turn things around for them. And you're the one feeling bad as the customer. And so your experience already is not in alignment to what they're saying they're all about, right?
Right. It's totally true. Yeah, going back to resourceful.
So then you start to question, okay, is this legit then? Because it's almost like you feel like you've been deceived. So if you're being deceived, the trust that you initially wanted to have is now compromised.
That's right. And the same thing with customers. It happens internally. High turnover, low trust, low engagement are all outcomes of not being aligned to values. And I'll tell you something. If you think about it, like I'm thinking about the term integrity, right, Marisa? So if we think about integrity, somebody could show up with integrity as to do what you say you're going to do. One of my mentors, her name is Susan Mackey. She shared this experience with me, and it was amazing. She said she had to work with a company who wanted to hire an employee, and they couldn't figure out, no matter what they did, this employee just wasn't measuring up. Well, it turned out that it was an integrity thing. This person was told by their parents, so this is a young professional just out of college, brand new to their first career. When you show up matters, and when you leave matters. So your timeliness is your integrity. That's what they were taught by their parents. And this other person was like, I need you to think out of the box. I want you to show integrity by problem solving. Now, those are two forms of integrity that are very real and very right, yet incompatible. And once Sue found that error, that miscommunication, to fix it, we have to understand each person defines that word, integrity. And that's where how it looks, how it sounds, and how it feels becomes paramount, because in that whole thing, if we don't know how it looks, if we don't know how it sounds, if we don't know how it feels in the moment, how can we reinforce that particular culture for the way we do our work?
I don't know if you've ever heard of love languages. And it was one of those things that really enlightened me about exactly that, because what you value might be different from what I value. So let's say you like to be the person that gives gifts, but the other person values words. Then the whole time you're giving this person that you care about gifts, and they don't care because they just want you to say nice things to them, and vice versa. There's a disconnect between how you define it. And when that is not in alignment, then you have problems understanding each other. So in this situation that you just shared, this person valued timeliness, but the company valued thinking outside the box, solving problems. And so there's definitely a disconnect there. And that was the cause of the misunderstanding. Each side was looking at each other going, what is the problem? Why is this not working out?
Totally. One of the stories I tell when I'm on stage or facilitating a conversation is that I was the most horrible wife for the first, 5 to 7 years of our marriage until we read 5 Love Languages, Marisa.
I know, it's such a simple book, but then you're going, why didn't I see this? Because it makes total sense. You have to understand the other person. You need to really communicate and say, okay, here's where I'm at. Where are you? Right?
Right. So exactly. So my husband would be like, just do stuff. He'd take out the garbage. My job is to unload the dishwasher, and it has been for 21 years. So he would unload the dishwasher. He might make dinner. We take turns, but he might go, I got it tonight if it was my night to make dinner. And I'd be like, why can't you just talk to me more? What is your problem? Why can't you just talk to me more? And we read the 5 Love Languages, and I'm like, he is showing me how much he loves me every single time he unloads the dishwasher for me.
Yes. And you know what? Your husband is me. I'm that person. Like, I like to
Your
do
acts
things.
of service?
Acts of service. Yeah. Yes.
I am touch and affirmation. Just talk to me already.
So that's my husband. So now we're reversed. You are just like my husband, and I'm just like your husband. So I completely get it. I know, it's crazy.
It's crazy.
What you're saying applies to business. And that is the key. So whether it's the customers you're serving or the people that are in your company, having that understanding is critical. Let's say we're there. We now understand each other. We're all on the same page. How do we then effectively set our goals? We have so many goals, especially like now in the new year. We're all like, this year is going to be the best year ever. And then so many of them drop out. It's similar to like when you decide you're going to lose weight and you get on the treadmill for the first month, and then after that you quit. How do we do better with goal setting?
Have less goals, because tasks are disguised as goals. So we think we can get motivated to do them. And it doesn't matter at home, in your relationships, all these things you want to do, all these places you want to visit, your personal life, what are your bucket lists, your business, you've got a bucket list for your business, you've got all these things that you want to do. So I was talking to a company just yesterday, and they were telling me that they didn't want to work with somebody else because every time they work with somebody, they get a to-do list that is as long as the library is big. And I was like, oh, so how's that working for you? And they said, it's not. And I was like, yeah, it's not. So when I can do a business, the first thing I do is I look at the goals and I look at the task list and I look at the objectives and all of that stuff. And we have to prioritize those first thing, because you know what happens is when you think about what the priorities actually are, and then you combine the strengths that you have, that your team has, and then you look at what is reasonable to do versus what would we need outside help to do. Then you get to go, oh, these get grouped over here. You find buckets within that goal list, which is a disguised list of to-dos, and they can all be grouped together. And sometimes when you look at your list differently and you look at your goals differently, you can actually say, this one goal actually handles 10 other tasks or other goals I have. And if we're not looking at that bigger picture and really taking the time to prioritize, once we have our values in place, we know how we're communicating, all we're doing is busy work and we will get stuck. When in fact, if we're grouping things together, we make bigger strides faster because we understand how each of these goals, each of these tasks, each of these objectives fit together, and understand then really how do they roll up and what's really important from all of those things that are similar. And we have fewer priorities.
The thing about it is we love tasks because tasks make us feel like we've accomplished stuff. Just checking boxes off is very therapeutic. You're like, wow, it's so productive today. I checked this, I checked that. But then the reality is you can be checking all day long and still not achieve your goals.
And not even check in and go, do these tasks still even matter to my goal? Which is, by the way, what happened to that company I was telling you about. We were talking about some of the things on the list. And I said, well, is that actually going to help you grow right now? And they said, no. And then we went to the next one and they said, no. I said, put it in a box, put it in a separate list, save it for another time. Is it a nice to have at this point for you? Yes. Will it break your business not doing it? No.
So those are the questions then that you should be asking. And when you say prioritize, it doesn't necessarily mean that some of the goals that you set for yourself are not valid, but they're not necessary. You kind of have to attack the things that are really going to make your business get to where it needs to go as quickly as possible. And then you can add on those other elements when the opportunity arises.
Yes, that's right.
And it's so simple, Jess, and yet most of us forget that. We're winging it. We just create these lists like a shopping list. You just put them on paper and check blindly without really thinking about where do you want to go and how are you going to get there? And are these things really necessary to achieve that?
And it's a skill to learn. You feel productive when you're checking things off, yet there's no time to actually take a step back, getting rid of all the stuff to make sure your forest is healthy. But you never actually take a step back to go up the mountain and look and go, yeah, my forest is healthy. We miss the forest because we're all the way down in the trees. And I spend one day a week doing nothing but looking at the forest. And by the way, this is a skill that we need to develop because we have been taught what productive looks like, and it's ingrained in us. And we have to counteract that and go against this counterintuitive process to step back. And that's a skill that can be learned, and it takes a lot of time. And it's also not necessarily productive time in the sense that I can't see, if I'm working in my business, I see X number of dollars per hour I work. Well, if you're taking a step back, you can actually take that X number of hours that you work and amplify it to be Y number of dollars instead. And so there is a trade-off. It is slow, yet it is possible. Sometimes it takes people 6 months. Sometimes it takes people 3 years. Even the little clicks along the way that are clicking in, there's no going back. And there are steps that we can feel and see in the middle of early 2020 when all of a sudden everything was at home. That was the day in my business I gave up. I gave up working on my business. And I saw the results of that in 2 months. That time that I take every Monday that I turned around and I dedicated to my family at home and supporting the school and whatever online learning looked for my child, and what are the other things that everybody else in the business needed and our team, and what could we not get done? I gave up that time. Within 60 days, I saw a drastic difference in my business. And that's from years of practice. And it turned off that fast. And I was like, okay, no matter what, I don't know what else is going to happen. And I call it a present retreat. My present retreat has to be, first and foremost, it can never be something that gets let go. I will always spend a portion of my week working It's at least 20% of my working week. So if I can only work 8 hours in a week, it's 20% of 8 hours. If I'm working 40 hours a week, it's 20% of 40 hours. So this is kind of a gauge for your listeners, Marisa, to think about, well, what does that actually mean? And I will tell you, the first time you sit in your office or your workspace and you're like, I put a to-do list away. What do I need to think about? What do I need to vision? That's not what happens. What happens is, oh, I got all these extra emails. Okay, fine. Answer all the emails. Get your email box to zero. Oh, I have all of these unread things, these texts from all of my clients or potential clients. I got to follow up with them. Do it. I even cleaned a couple of closets in my office where I keep equipment and I keep posters and I keep materials for trainings when we're doing them in person. And I can't wait until that happens again. And finally, I was like, okay, what else do I do? Oh, look, I can now think. Because in my case, my physical space was connected to my head space. Other people are going to have different things that show up if there's a different connection. That process has to be worked through and just recognizing, good, that's what I did for my present retreat. It'll take 6 weeks or so to just get out of that habit of making an intention to try and think. There's papers everywhere. There's visioning boards. There's markers. There's things, but it's not checking the task list. And so getting out of the habit of checking that task list takes time. And it's not 30 days to make a habit or 60 days to make a habit. This is a business skill that takes a lot of time to get, and it takes longer to master. I don't even think I've mastered it yet. And that's okay, because that's what it's about. It's about a practice and a commitment to a practice.
Failing to plan is like planning to fail. So it's really a planning time, thinking very strategically about where you want to go and then allotting time to get that to happen. One of the things that I always prioritize in the very, very first week of the new year is I do my paper purging. I like to get all of my paperwork together from the last year so that I can take care of all of that, file everything, get it out of the way. It's refreshing because now I can find things. You're starting from a clean slate and you can really focus your mind. And to your point also, the environment for me is very important. So I like things organized. I need to be able to find things. I need to be able to feel like I have the space that I need to do what I need to do. And when that's cluttered, then it hinders my ability to do my work effectively. What works for you and what is it going to take for you to start in that space so that you can be the best at what you want to do for that process or the year or for your business?
That's exactly right. And only pick one at a time. Like this year, I have specific expectations for Red Direction. We have 3 product lines. We have the podcast, we have consulting, and we have a new on-demand coaching program. And in those 3 product lines, I have goals for each. The one skill I must learn, and I must dedicate a portion of every single one of my weekly present retreats, is how do I market an information product? I know how to do it because I read, I listen, I'm an avid learner, but I have not done it. So I am rolling up my sleeves and doing this particular skill and figuring out all of the ins and the outs, because marketing elements are there, sales elements are there. There's some different things. We're talking about information as a service. We have what's called churn. How many people go within a month or 2 months? How many people stay for years? All of those things are going to be unique, changing drastically from what we've been doing in the past. And that means, can I bring everything I've learned to this new skill? Absolutely. Yet I recognize that with every new skill, there's going to be things that I haven't thought about, that I haven't expected, and most importantly, that I'm going to be resistant to, so it's going to take longer. I believe in being very specific and very focused in our goals and understanding what the priorities are. And so launching a new type of product, which is very different from the consulting that we've done in the past, requires more learning. Business who wants to get as much money as possible has to keep track of time, falls short when it comes to actually learning and integrating something new as part of their own internal innovation. And so I'm expecting all of 2021 to be spent experiencing firsthand, using everything I bring to the table, everything I can learn, everything I know, to make information as a service something that works well for us. Because I know it works. I know selling anything as a service works. We see it all the time and hear about all those products, all those companies that are getting bought up and acquired for big money. They know how they work together because of what they value. They've prioritized particular goals and understand what that looks like. This is where everybody can do better, and definitely me, is allow the time that's actually needed to learn to be what it is. We might allot 3 months for learning and implementation, but it might actually take 6. It's in, it aligns with our priorities, or it's out, it doesn't. And once we know what's in, we can make better decisions, which means when we can make better decisions with what we know what we can commit to. And when we know what we can commit to, we can say, this is a skill we have, we need, we want to hire.
There is trial and error that applies. And these are not magical, quick fix things. And I think that is really the key, because as business owners, we all want fast and we all want it to work right off the gate. And the reality of anything, no matter what we do, is that it's going to take some experimentation to a certain extent. Now, obviously, we want to try to get from A to Z in the straightest line possible with the least amount of headache. And there are tools out there to do that. But at the end of the day, it's unrealistic to say, well, I'm going to be able to do this without making any mistakes and I'm just going to get this done and everything's going to work perfectly, because that's just not the way business works. And if you have different expectation from that, then you're going to be sorely disappointed and discouraged.
Oh, I'm telling you, it works that way in relationships, families and households, in, where there's roommates or spouses or extended family or, you name it.
Life is messy and business is messy. And you just have to be able to understand that there are going to be mistakes made and not be afraid of that. But like you said, I think the message here is plan. And planning is just so critical because you have to think, you have to give yourself time to sit back, look at it, and even look at it from other people's point of view, like get a really good perspective of where you want to go, where the company is taking you, what people are expecting from you. Make sure all of that is in alignment, because then once you have clarity there, then you know exactly where you're going to go and what is needed to get there.
The thing that we have to remember is that it's really hard to learn how to look at our own forest without help. And that's the kind of work a business advisor really can help you with. That could be a lawyer. It could be a business broker if you're getting ready to sell your business. It could be somebody like me that just does operational consulting. And of course, we all have elements of coaching in that. We all have elements of consulting in that. But you do need somebody. It could be your CPA. It could be the people that provide you technology. Your advisor could be anybody that is in a business, that understands business, that you could ask questions of, and will have your best interests in mind when you get the answers. And that's where an extra set of eyes is always helpful. I like to plug everybody else too, because sometimes we have somebody like that in our lives, in our business lives, and we don't know it. And we should always leverage and build the relationships we have because of the amount of trust that is involved, because the amount of headspace we actually give to it, and because we have to really understand that when we are showing up to somebody else to be accountable and to have somebody help us with our business, they're going to see us at our worst. And it's hard to let people that we don't know very well see us stomp around and throw a tantrum when we have somebody outside of ourselves, outside of our business, that really has our best interest in mind for the business's success. We can really leverage. But again, it comes with trust. And it comes with a willingness to go, yeah, we can't take ourselves too seriously, but I also need to be able to be at my worst. I need to be able to vent, which means throw a tantrum. And boy, do I love my advisors for that.
It goes back to what we were saying, set those expectations. Sometimes you just need somebody to listen. And so just let them know, I just want to vent right now. Can you hear me out? And then that other person gets what it is that you need at that moment in time. It's about getting help. It's about not taking things on all on your own, because it's not realistic. And on top of that, you see things from a certain vantage point that other people do not see, and vice versa. And it's really that collaboration with other people that helps you get outside of the box, really think outside of things that you would never have even considered before. So talk to people, get help, whatever resources that you need to become successful in whatever it is you're trying to achieve. It's not achieved alone. There's always people out there, whether it's friends, family, business people, whatever, that are going to help. And you need to ask for that help.
Correct. That's exactly right.
Jess, tell us about what you do, how people can get a hold of you, and some offerings perhaps or specialty areas that you focus on and who you serve.
The conversation we had is a perfect illustration. It's having a conversation. It's assessing what we already have. It's being able to make priorities, and it's be able to really understand the values with which we work so that those priorities, we know they're the right ones and we don't have to have the fear of missing out. And I think the fear of missing out drives the fact that over 85% of business owners neglect their business's strategy. And that means they're neglecting the true opportunities of where growth can actually occur within an organization. And that's why I've developed Fast Track Your Business program. And it's available today. It's at fasttrackyourbusiness.com. And what it does is it continues that conversation. It's an on-demand program where you come get the information when you need it so that you can build your own skills, so that you can build your own capacity for the unknown and align every action, every decision in a very prioritized, strategic way to the mission. Those are the things that make up a company true north. You can commit to that true north, the things that we've talked about today, the more you not only know what it'll take to succeed, but you actually will have success authentically, pragmatically, and resiliently. You can search Jess Dewell, Jess, like David, Ewell, on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn especially. And then reddirection.com is the website. And if you don't remember anything else, remember fasttrackyourbusinesstoday.com, and it'll get you to all the other stuff I already said.
2021 is a new start for all of us. And I know that we're all looking for ideas, thinking outside the box, especially now with the way businesses are having to be run. We're doing things very differently, and businesses are having problems pivoting. They're still seeing things the way they always have, and they just can't figure out, how do I switch gears? What do I need to do to get to where I need to go in a different way than I'm used to? Thank you for being here and for sharing your knowledge with us.
Thank you for having me. I could have this conversation all day, every day, Marisa, and I'm excited for what 2021 brings all of us.
That's a wrap for this episode of Live Blissed Out. Thanks for listening, and thanks to Jess Dewell for being my guest. If you have a question or comment for a future episode, all you have to do is go to speakpipe.com/LBOVM or click the link in the show notes to leave a brief audio message. If you find value in our show, please visit liveblessedout.com to reach out, subscribe, and share on social media. This show is made possible through listeners like you. Thank you. So long for now, and remember to keep moving forward.